We're 62 degrees at WAKR with Dr. Joe Concini from Sports Medicine Center at Akron Children's Hospital. He joins us on Wednesdays. Good morning, Joe. What do you have for us today?
Hey, Ray. How you doing today?
I'm doing terrific, my friend.
Yeah, it's a great stretch of weather that we have here for those of us that just kind of enjoy summer activities. But for those groups of people that I run around with, high school athletes, this is going to be a very, very interesting year, and this is an interesting week. Actually, today is an interesting, important day as we move into the next phase in this high school fall sports season that is going to be so unique and different. You know, so much variability. You and I have been talking about the uncertainty of what effect the summer practices, open summer practices starting in June for our fall sports athletes are going to have, and I think we start getting some answers today. Today I would particularly talk about the high school football players, Ray, and the reason being that today is the first day for full equipment. So although there's been a lot of variability of how the football teams have practiced in the last 3 months, starting today is when they put the equipment on, full equipment. And, we're 2 days away, 2 or 3 days away from the first scrimmage, and yet they have not had the equipment on and had physical practices yet. We are 2 weeks from Friday away from the first game of the season on the 20th of September. So these things are coming upon us fast. There used to be a lot longer period of full equipment, and I think it's really been a good thing to very gradually break in a step at a time, going from just helmets and shoulder pads. But today is full equipment. And a couple things about full equipment that I wanted to let your audience know. They're such a good audience and so up on things. This is something I've learned from over 30 years of being involved with this. This is a week that I call the unmasking week, or a couple of weeks. What happens is if kids went into the summer or during the summer, they developed a stretched shoulder, subluxing shoulder, rolled their ankle sprains, knee sprains, stress fractures, they're really at risk when they start getting into the very physical nature of the next couple of weeks of going on to a more significant fracture. And so this is the time the kids that have been kind of able to get by or hiding other fractures, this is when we really get busy in the sports medicine world because we unmask a lot of injuries in the first 2 or 3 weeks that have been sitting below the surface. So that starts today, number one. Number two, we talk so much about heat illness, and I know you had a good segment yesterday on heat illness with Aaron. Heat illness, gosh, I'm a little bit worried when I heard you read the weather. The temperatures are going up, and even next week back into the 90s. The time that athletes are most at risk are mainly our football players when they're in full equipment. There's a huge difference between when they're in full equipment and whether they are not in full equipment. They're in shorts, maybe just shoulder pads and so forth. The heat stroke number goes way up when they're fully in equipment. And today in full equipment with the heat in the next week, I am concerned again that heat will be an issue, and our trainers are on high alert to be ready to deal with that. We've already had one kid lose his life down in Georgia with heat illness this summer already. So we got to be alert about that, number two. But number three this year, Ray, is I really feel for the coaches, the high school, especially football coaches, in trying to decide what to do next. There's no great science about what to do next as far as hitting. A lot of times it's in their DNA that we have to improve tackling. To be a good football team, we have to be physical. But we also know that this is the time that you really risk injuries. You could lose a kid for the full 10, 11-game season right in the first week of practice. And so they're really trying to balance that quite a bit. You hear it all the way from the professional level to the college level as they now are in full equipment and to the high school level. I heard the interview yesterday with Kevin Stefanski, and he's battling that right now. And they learned a few things last year in the COVID year when they were not as physical. So a lot of people took some of the physicality out of practice, are really reducing the physicality, trying to keep their teams as healthy as possible while still teaching the right techniques and tackling and being physical. And that's a really fine line to walk. And there's no great science, again, of, hey, here's the playbooks you used for the last 10 or 15 years. Lots of new things this year. And so I feel for the high school coaches as they kind of try to make their way along about what's the best way to walk that fine line and teaching the physicality and tackling, but also not losing players, especially nowadays when a lot of schools have a small number of players to begin with, to the risk of injury. And the first few weeks is the time when injuries are really at their highest point. So those are a few points about what makes today with the full equipment practices a little bit different. It's going to be a unique day out there as the kids get out and start hitting.
Joe, as opposed to when you and I played back in the day, I like that the coaches in schools have really adjusted the practice schedules to either the early mornings or the evenings to stay out of those high heat areas.
I really like that a lot, Ray, and I am going to, although they get a lot of criticism, I'm going to go back also to the Ohio High School Athletic Association and some of the other bodies that work with high school sports. I think they've done a pretty good job to look at things like heat and what's the best way we can keep kids safe, to look at things like physical play and what can we do to keep kids safe. So the kind of where we progressed each day and week, instead of going straight to pads and hitting. I think I remember when I played youth sports, we were hitting in full equipment in the month of July, and we would have 3 or 4 weeks leading up to the first scrimmage. These kids literally now are going to have 2 days before many of them are going to be scrimmaging Friday and Saturday of this week and playing in 2 weeks.
Yeah, unbelievable where we are, that's for sure. Joe, thank you for the time and the visit, my friend. We'll reconvene next week.
All right, sounds great, Ray. Thanks. Have a great day.
You as well. Dr. Joe Congini with us, Akron Children's Hospital.